Welcome to Behind the Music, the Houston Chamber Choir's weekly podcast. I'm St. John Flynn. This time it's a great pleasure to welcome one of the sopranos from the Houston Chamber Choir, Rebecca Castillo. Rebecca, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
When did you join the choir?
I joined the choir in the fall of 2018. I actually got an email or a Facebook message, actually, I think, from the accompanist, Andrea Moot, saying there was a soprano opening and that I should audition. She and I went to college together. That's how we know each other.
Oh, really?
Yes. And yeah, I was in Europe at the time, actually, doing a young artist program. And so I had a tiny little laptop and I got all my materials together and sent them off to Bob Simpson and was like, I hope I get an audition. So it was a very exciting time.
Tell us about that audition. What was it like? What does it involve?
The audition involved singing a song that I've already prepared. So I think I sang Laurie's Song from the Tenderland by Aaron Copland. That's a song I really enjoy singing. And then we sight read some choral music, and then Bob did some really cool exercises where he hears us sing at our loudest, at our softest. Can we sing with lots of vibrato, no vibrato? So it was a really, really fun thing. And of course, meeting Bob for the first time was really fun because he was very nice and he made me feel very secure. I get really nervous in auditions, so it was really a safe and fun environment to have an audition.
And I assume that you were overjoyed when you found out that you'd been accepted.
Yes, I was so excited. It's just a big honor because it's a group that I've heard about since I was young. Being from Houston, I've heard of chamber choir, I've seen chamber choir. So for me, it was a big honor to be selected for the group.
So when you started and you started going to rehearsals, etc., what was it that really struck you to begin with that perhaps you hadn't anticipated or you hadn't expected?
Well, I have sung in a couple of different professional choirs. I've sung with Bach Society of Houston. When I went to Cincinnati, I sang with Vocal Arts Ensemble. So I've been in professional choir situations before, but Houston Chamber Choir, when I walked in, like the level was just so high. Every musician was ready to go. The quality of the singing, as soon as we would just see a piece for the first time, was amazing. I'm usually between Cami Estelle and Mariana Simpson. And so being between those two powerhouse singers is it was very intimidating. And it still can be because they're just, I don't want to say perfect every time, but they're always on their game. And so it was just, I've sung with really great ensembles under really great directors. And so I had no idea what to expect. And it was just a high level of musicianship, but with a really close-knit family feel. Like everybody would laugh together on breaks, we'd talk, the teachers would all check in with each other and be like, how are you doing? So I didn't know what to expect, because it was such a high level professional choir, and I was afraid I don't know if I'm going to fit in with the other sopranos. But it really just felt like a family right from the first rehearsal.
It's a very well-oiled machine, isn't it?
Yes, and especially meeting the managing director, Marianne, meeting everybody that had everything well in hand. Oh, you're gonna do this, you're gonna wear this, you're gonna be here at this time. That was something that I hadn't really experienced before. So it just made everything much easier, especially since my day job is a teacher. I have a thousand things going on, and to have such a high level of professionalism, it made the job going into singing with them so easy.
And so much has happened in the last 3 years or what since you joined. Obviously, the big thing is winning the Grammy for the Zauberflöte recording. What else stands out in your mind from your time in the choir?
I feel like every concert has been super special for different reasons. I I love choral music. I've always felt a special connection to choral music just because you're making music with other people. Things that I
Mm.
really, really enjoyed was doing the Annalise, the James Whitburn piece. I thought that was one of the most special things that we've done because I really think that talking about history, singing about history is important. And
That's a piece that he wrote based on the diary of Anne Frank.
yes, based on the
Yeah,
diary of Anne Frank, and we sang it at the Holocaust Museum in Houston. And it's an honor to bring that kind of music to light and to the community so that other people can share in it. So that was a huge highlight. I that the whole season was amazing and until the pandemic hit. And then
right.
on recording Circle Song was also an amazing piece by Bob Chilcott, and we recorded that in February of 2020. And the thing that was really amazing about that was having Bob Chilcott with us, and then getting to actually record with the chamber choir and getting to experience that. We do record at several different concerts during the year, but just
Mhm.
the intensity of a recording session, knowing that it will be on a CD, was really exciting.
It is an intense experience, isn't it?
Yes,
And very
extremely.
draining as well, I should imagine.
Yes, that was particularly draining because we had dress rehearsals for a week and then the concerts and then the recording session. And then I
Mhm.
actually had more dress rehearsals and concerts for another organization right after that. So it was just go, 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 go. And at the time we were also preparing for UIL contests for my choirs at school. So it was extremely draining. And I just remember at the time thinking like, you're really tired, but this is special. Like you just have to keep pulling through, you got to keep doing it. And now obviously looking back on it, those are the last concerts that I sang that in a normal setting. So I'm very grateful for just, pulling through and doing the thing because it was worth every minute.
Talking to members of the choir, one of the things that becomes so apparent is what you mentioned as well, that sense of community. There is a real friendship that you all develop for each other, isn't there?
There definitely is. I think when you spend that much time with people, you get to know each other, but also there's just an, I want to almost say like an intimacy about singing that kind of music together and relying on each other.
Hmm.
You're sometimes we can be very far away from each other, the basses from the sopranos, but we need the basses, we need their strength so that we can sing the high notes, or even with the altos and the sopranos. And there's just something very we build on each other, and knowing that we have each other's backs when we're singing translates to having each other's backs in real life. I know that I have called on one of the sopranos in the past to come and play for one of my groups that I was teaching, or I'll Facebook message another teacher and be like, I'm having this problem, I really need help, or vice versa. I'll someone's struggling with their classes, and I'll be like, hey, you got this, it's going to be okay. It's that type of like backup translates in the music, and it also translates into our real lives. And it's really nice. It makes the waiting around, if we have to wait, in between concerts, it makes it really fun because we have stuff to talk about each other, music or our personal lives outside of music, and we all get along. So it's really, really pleasant.
How do you think your singing has developed since you've been in the choir, if at all?
It's kind of strange because I am 31, and the voice grows, in different rates for different people. I've always
Hmm.
felt like I've had a very young sounding voice, and that has not always helped me when it came to operatic things. It's kind of worked against me. Uh, but for choir, it kind of works for you to sound youthful. And so it's actually been a challenge for me because in the last couple of years that I've been singing with chamber choir, I've also been trying to grow my operatic sound.
Hmm.
So it's kind of been like a Jekyll and Hyde situation. I go to chamber choir and I try to keep a very smooth legato sound, very less vibrato, and try to give that youthful tone. And then when I go practice my own rep, I'm trying to open up and do a bigger sound and more vibrato. and so it actually has been a challenge because I'm trying to balance those two things that I really love, because I really love choral music and I really love opera. But it actually has been a challenge. And not that my voice has been tired, but then when you add teaching during the day on top of that, it can get wearing on the voice.
Yes, yeah. So tell us about your experience in the operatic realm.
Oh, I adore opera. I think it's just magical. I know most little kids don't like opera, but when I was growing up, my sister was getting a vocal performance degree locally here at HBU. So I would go and see her operas. And so when I had the opportunity at my church to sing Amal and the Night Visitors by Menotti, I did that as my first opera and first operatic role. And it was perfect because I had even at 18, I mean, I had a very youthful voice. So playing a little boy was a good fit. And I've just always put myself out there, done the opera workshops at my colleges, auditioned for young artist programs. Even though I knew that I may not have like the biggest, most operatic voice, I just love being part of the show, even if it's just in the chorus. I love being part of the storytelling. I think that's one of the most magical things about opera is we can tell stories that we might not be able to tell through choral music. You have the operatic medium to tell. And I think that it's really exciting. And I think some of the things that are happening in opera right now, new operas and things like that, and some more diversity that's happening in opera is really exciting right now. So I just adore opera. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful medium.
What are some of the roles that you have sung?
I have sung Zerlina in Don Giovanni. I have sung, let's see. I've sung Monica in The Medium. I did that a couple of years ago for Chicago Summer Opera. And that was really fun. Again, a youthful character, which works because I have a youthful voice. I've done a lot of Mozart. Mozart seems to fit for me. When I was in Cincinnati, I had the opportunity to sing Annina in Traviata, which was really fun because I was sharing the stage with some of the best singers that I've ever heard. And it was just an honor to be on stage with them and share that stage. And it was funny because I was actually just in the chorus and they ended up not having an Annina because it was a summer program. And Mark Gibson, the orchestral director there, knew me from a previous show and was like, hey, can you learn this role in 3 days and be at staging on Monday? And I was like, okay, I'll do it.
So who are your operatic heroes or heroines, if you like? Are there particular singers that have really stood out and made an impression on you?
Oh, when I was little, I wanted to be Leontine Price when I grew up.
Yeah, wow.
There's an illustrated book of Aida that came with a cassette tape, I think, or maybe a CD, and it was the story of Aida, and then it was excerpts from the opera, and I used to listen to that religiously when I would go to bed. I didn't know anything about voice types or how big or how little her voice was. So I didn't quite know anything about that. But I just knew that it was gorgeous. And I just loved how beautiful she looked on stage. And I just admired her so much. And then as I got older and I started to learn about voice types, I was like, I might not be a Leontine Price, and that's okay. I started to gravitate towards lighter voices like Kathleen Battle. I love the just beautiful tone quality she has and her diction. And it's just, for me, she also graduated from Cincinnati too, which is why she's an idol for me. And both of her degrees are in music education, which both of my degrees are in music education. So I love that about her. And I also just loved seeing a woman of color on stage. We did Magic Flute my senior year at Sam Houston. And I didn't think that I could be Pamina because I didn't think I had the voice type for that. And then I saw Kathleen Battle singing it at the Met on YouTube. And I was like, no, I'm going to go for this role, you know, because up until that point, I thought, oh, I'll be First Spirit. That's fine. I'll go for First Spirit. It'll be fine, you know. And then I saw her and I was like, no, I could be a princess. I'm going to do this. And I went for the role, and I was double cast as Pamina my senior year at Sam Houston. And it was just fun. And I think seeing those people on stage, you know, whether you identify them because of their voice or because of, you know, the way they look, or just seeing that representation is so important, because then you can visualize yourself in those places.
So you mentioned that you went to undergraduate at Sam Houston State University. Did you grow up in a musical family?
Yes, definitely. So my dad and his brothers all played band instruments, trombone, trumpet. They interchange sometimes. And then my dad graduated high school. He didn't go to college for a degree, but he did go to community college to learn piano as well.
Oh, nice.
And him and my mom were in church choir together back in the day. And we all grew up either playing an instrument or being in choir. So that was something that's very important to my parents.
You said you have a sister that has also has degrees in vocal performance.
Yes. My sister Rachel is 9 years older than me, and she has a bachelor's in vocal performance from HBU and a master's in vocal performance from Sam Houston State. We actually went to Sam Houston State at the same time while I was getting my bachelor's degree.
Oh, really?
And yes, and it was super fun because I got to live with her when I was a freshman and sophomore instead of living on campus. So that was really, really fun.
And we should say HBU is Houston Baptist University. And is she a soprano?
She is a soprano. She's a soprano, and we've duetted quite a bit in different mediums. Like she has sung Countess before in The Marriage of Figaro by Mozart, and we did a Susanna Countess duet before, which is really fun. And we've sung together with an organization called Clear Lake Chamber Ensemble. We've done some singing with them. And sometimes if I do a personal recital, we'll get to sing together, which is really fun because she has an amazing voice and I love singing with her.
So when you were growing up at home, what sort of music was played in the home, if any?
Oh my gosh, we listened to so much music at home. Like we had a record player. Before that, my dad had an 8-track player. You know, when CDs came out, he got a CD player. We had tape players, CD players. My dad was always about getting the latest technology. So whatever it was, we had it. We listened to a lot of like oldies from the 50s and 60s in the car. And then we listened to classical music because my sister was in college at the time. So she'd be listening to orchestral music, operas, musical theater, lots of Andrew Lloyd Webber. I know some people are not into that, but I love Andrew Lloyd Webber music. It's catchy, it's fun. You know, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I like it. And I remember I started playing cello in the 5th grade. So I remember like one Christmas, my parents got me the Yo-Yo Ma Emanuel Axe Brahms cello sonatas. And I was just like, yeah, it was like I think 6th or 7th grade Christmas, and I like was addicted to that CD. Like I played it to death. But then I also got like a Creed CD the same Christmas, so I was like listening to alternative rock and cello sonatas. And so like I got really into alternative music, like rock, like Linkin Park and things like that. So I listened to really heavy metal music and classical music at the same time. And I still do to this day. Driving to work, I listen to very heavy metal music.
So at what point did you veer toward the vocal side of things rather than instrumental?
So 7th grade was when I kind of decided I was going to be an orchestra teacher because we had gotten a brand new teacher at the school. And that's when I kind of figured out, oh, I can major in music. Cool. Because before then I kind of assumed I was going to be a teacher because my mom was a teacher. And she was the first person in her family to go to college and get a degree. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll be a teacher like my mom. But music teaching, I was like, oh, that's a thing. I can do that. And I went on that pathway all through school. I was like, I took orchestra, I took choir, I took music theory in high school. I was very lucky that my high school offered music theory because I would have been really lost in college without that training. But I just got really lost right at the end of senior year. I didn't know what to do. I didn't get into the colleges I wanted to get into. And then I was like, well, I'll just go to community college. And then actually the thing that really steered me was a program called AFA, American Festival for the Arts.
Yes.
I attended the summer after my senior year. And I met Christopher Michelle, who is still at Sam Houston State. And the voice teacher I had was actually from San Jacinto Community College, which is where I was planning on going. And she was like, well, you could come to the community college or you could do voice and go to Sam Houston. So I arranged to audition at Sam Houston with Christopher Michelle 2 weeks, I think, before school started.
Oh, wow.
And since my sister was already going, he was like, you should come. And I was like, okay. So I switched from thinking I was going to be a string major to being a voice major.
Because Sam Houston has a very strong musical theatre component, but also presumably there were operatic opportunities as well.
Yes, definitely. And since I was focused on education at the time, I wasn't really super concerned about the opera at that time because I was really concerned about music ed. But then as I started to do the program and be there, and then I started to get into the extracurriculars and especially opera. And I'm very grateful for AFA because I would not have made that connection with Mr. Michelle if I hadn't gone. And also it was like the first time that I got to sing big music with an orchestra. We did some pieces by Gwyneth Walker that just changed my world. I was like, that was kind of the first time I realized that choir could be more than just, it could be like this uplifting musical experience. Because I had a good experience in high school choir. And not to say that I didn't, I had a great experience, but it was just a different level at AFA because everybody really wanted it to be good. And the orchestral students were very good. And it just, seeing that caliber of music at that level really was just eye-opening for me. Because at that time, really my best musical experiences had been in orchestra. Because we were playing full orchestra music. We were playing, Schubert Unfinished Symphony, Berlioz March to the Scaffold. So like my high school experience in orchestra was so moving that I didn't realize that choir could be that moving too until AFA. And I was like, oh, okay, well then let's try this.
So did you go straight on to the University of Cincinnati, the College-Conservatory of Music, immediately after undergraduate?
No, I did not.
No?
I actually started teaching first. I decided to go straight into my first job. Well, not straight into. I actually did an internship at Disney World called the Disney College Program.
Oh, really?
Yes, I did. It was super fun. So after I graduated in December of 2011, I went to Disney World and I was a character attendant. So it's the person who like walks Mickey Mouse around and says, leave Mickey alone, or hey, come say hi to Mickey.
Mickey security.
Yes, I'm the security detail. Yeah, that was super, super fun. And it was a great like pause. And it was kind of a pause for music too, which was different. Because I just had 4.5 years of college and I kind of got a break from everything. It was it made me miss it. And so I appreciated it when I got back home.
Recharging the batteries.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. And so when I got back home, I started my first job teaching high school choir and orchestra. It was a split position and it was great. And it was super, super fulfilling. And then I just continued to teach and started singing with Bach Society. And then I kind of felt like I hit a wall with my singing. I was like, I'm not getting any better. I'm not getting any worse. So then I applied to grad school and auditioned in several places and chose Cincinnati.
It's a wonderful, wonderful conservatory, isn't it?
Yes, I feel really, really lucky because I did all of my grad school auditions on vocal performance. Because at that time I was like, I just want to perform. Like more than anything, I want to perform. So I was like, I love teaching, I love my ed degree, but I want to be on stage. And so I got into several places for vocal performance, but I did not get into Cincinnati on a vocal performance. I didn't make that audition. And the music ed department contacted me and was like, hey, we saw your application and your audition, and we would be interested in interviewing you for music ed. And I was like, well, I didn't really want music ed masters, but okay, I'll do the interview. And it really, the offer came in and it was a full scholarship and a graduate assistantship. And I was like, well, I really wanted that vocal performance degree, but I could have the opportunity to study with some of the best teachers and one of the best colleges in the country. It would be silly not to go. And I love teaching.
And to have it paid for as well.
Exactly, and have it paid for. I had other offers from other schools, but they weren't anywhere close financially to the stability that Cincinnati offered. So I went, and I'm so grateful. I didn't. Most music ed majors would study with a doctoral candidate, and I studied with my teacher, Amy Johnson, and she was the most supportive human being. She's a beautiful, dramatic soprano, beautiful human. And she just supported me 100%. She was like, she didn't treat me any different because I was a teacher, a music ed person. She was like, if you want to sing in the operas, I'll help you audition for the operas. If you want to make your voice better, that's what I'm here for. And so I felt like I got the thing that I wanted, which was to improve my voice. But then I also got to become a better educator because I got to work with different age groups than I had worked with before. The music ed program at Cincinnati is top notch. I feel like people get so caught up in the performance that they forget about the ed, but the educators at Cincinnati are absolutely amazing. Every program at Cincinnati is amazing, whether it's media, art, they're just the top and the best. And it's a lot of caring people that really want us to succeed. And there's a very big push, a positive push for diversity in the arts at Cincinnati. And I really appreciated that as well.
And Kathleen Battle graduated from CCM.
And I know, and I love her. I mean, I know she's a diva, but I still love her.
When you finished in Cincinnati, did you go back into teaching straight away?
Yes. So
did you come back to Houston?
I did. It was really funny story. I wasn't sure if I was going to. I kind of thought about auditioning for young artist programs, and my teacher supported me 100%. But I got a call, saying, hey, this job is open. We'll keep it open if you want to interview for it. We'll wait for you to finish your degree. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm going back. And I don't regret that at all. The thing that is the hardest and thing that happened to me in grad school is my dad passed away right when I started. Oh. And so it was a really bittersweet time because I felt like I got what I wanted in the sense that I wanted to work on my voice, but then there was this big hole in my heart the whole time. So I was like, I'm ready to come home. I want to be with my mom and my sisters, and I miss home. So I think there may be a time when I'm ready to go sing somewhere else again. I was like, but this is not the time. I just want to be with my family.
So you are teaching now. What grades are you teaching?
I'm teaching 7th and 8th grade choir. And I know that sounds scary to some people, but they're really not that bad.
So how do you find the students respond to that choral experience?
It's pretty, I would say it's a pretty tough sell where I, particularly where I am, there's a really, really strong band program in the area from 5th grade to 12th grade. And so people are kind of like, choir, what's that? Why would I do that? And so we're really fighting against that right now. And I think that it's going to take some time. But I know that the kids that I've had, they are having a really great time. And it's one of those things where sometimes kids don't know what they want. They're like, I don't want to sing that piece called Dona Nobis Pacem. What does that even mean? It's in Latin. But then the next year they'll be like, oh, can we sing Dona Nobis Pacem again? I'm like, we sang it last year. So it's really a process. And I think that it's difficult, especially because if they've never heard choral music or classical music or opera, then for them, it's just like, what is happening? They don't know. And that's the thing I think I'm most passionate about, is helping kids know if they like it or not. Because I tell them all the time, it's okay if you don't like this. It's okay if you don't like classical music. But if you never listen to it, you won't know if you like it.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Like right now, it's Black History Month, and we're learning about composers and classical artists and pop artists. And, they like it. They liked listening to Leontine Price. They were like, wow, that's impressive. Yeah. But they wouldn't know if they hadn't heard it before.
So do you see yourself, this is a horribly unfair question. Do you see yourself primarily as a performer or as an educator?
Oh my gosh, it's so hard to separate the two.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's why I asked the question.
I mean, I think that at the end of the day, I see myself as an educator, just because I always want to teach, even in a performing situation. Like, I'm very lucky that I get opportunities to perform with youth groups as a soloist. I get to go in and work with kids at other schools to clinic. I get to work with local orchestras, I should say, like Pasadena Philharmonic. And even when I'm in those situations as a performer, I like to use that to educate my kids. Right. I say, like, this is something you can do if you want to perform, or, this is something about this music. I feel like I love to perform.
And if you've got two strings to your bow.
Yes, if I could do it all the time, full time, I would. But I would still want to teach, like privately or I love teaching. Just the satisfaction you get when you watch somebody get that aha moment, or they finally get something. It's a really beautiful thing. And that's what's really beautiful about teaching choir, is that you have a whole room of people having that moment together. And I don't know, it's tough. And I know a lot of the educators in Houston Chamber Choir feel the same way. It's tough because it feels like you're being pulled multiple directions, and I'm very stubborn. I like to perform, and I find a lot of opportunities to perform. But I do, at the end of the day, my kids are really important to me.
Which school district do you teach in?
I teach in Pasadena ISD, which is the same school district that I went to school in.
Oh, wow. Do you get to interact with the families of your students, with the parents?
Say during my teaching career, it's been touch and go. I've only worked in Title I schools, which means at least 40% of the school is low socioeconomic. But the schools that I've worked in have been at least 90 to 96% free and reduced lunch. So for the most part, those parents are working really hard so that their kids can have opportunities that they don't have. Yeah. And that to say, I started at a different school in the district, and at the intermediate level, and the parents are very helpful. When I see them, they're very kind, and they're very supportive. But I don't get to see them as much as I would like to. And I don't think sometimes the kids get to see them as much as they would like to, because they're working really, really, really hard. And I will say, like, it's rough. it's rough on the kids, it's rough on us, because we want to spend time with them, we want to rehearse with them, and they're like, well, if I don't take the bus, I don't have a ride, I can't stay for rehearsal. And so there's just a lot more hurdles to come over when teaching in Title One. But I mean, that's really the only type of school that I'd want to work in, because these are the type of kids that I really want to reach. And there's so many different teaching situations, and I would never fault anyone for wanting to teach in a more stable environment. I totally understand that. But the thing is, every kid needs a teacher, and
Absolutely.
everybody needs the best teacher. And whether they're financially stable or not financially stable shouldn't really make a difference.
I know that you have been involved with EXIGENCE, which is a vocal ensemble that it comes out of the Sphinx organization. Tell us about that, because I think that the Sphinx organization is one of the leading cultural gems of this country.
I agree completely with that. Their mission is to create diversity in the orchestral groups around the country. And because there's just not a lot of Black and Latinx people in those high level positions in those professional orchestras. And a couple of years ago, actually, after I joined chamber choir, the winter of 2018, I saw a posting that they were going to start a professional choir under the direction of Eugene Rogers. And like, he's just a big name in choral world. He teaches at University of Michigan, and just very well respected. And so I applied. They had a very extensive recorded audition process. But I was like, this is really cool, because they really just wanted to highlight the fact that people of color, we don't just sing, people who are of African descent don't just sing African music, or people who are Hispanic don't just sing, Spanish music. That we sing Bach like everyone else. We sing Brahms. We can sing anything we want to sing. And I think that message is what really struck me when I was reading the posting. I was like, that's me. I love Bach. People always think that's weird, but I'm like, no, I love Bach. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, definitely. I want to audition for this. And when I got it, it was really amazing, because it actually coincided with our musical. I was teaching high school at the time, and I had to miss the dress rehearsals and the show.
Oh, really?
It was really tough, because leaving my kids was really hard. And my head director at the time, Brenda Barbudas, who is taught in the district I work in for a very long time, she was just like, no, you have to do this. You have to. This is a really cool opportunity. Like, go. So I got on that plane and I went. And just meeting all these people with different professions, like there were composers, Joel Thompson, who's written some very famous choral music now. This just in the consciousness, I feel like, of the choral world. There's altos. I actually was singing alto. I know everyone's gonna be like, what? She's soprano.
Traitor.
I know. Well, I actually sang alto for Bach Society too. I was singing alto for that, and I met a bunch of people who worked at different schools. People who are professional performers all the time.
These were people from all over the country.
All over the country, yes, all over the country, and some locally from the Detroit area. So the Sphinx Connect conference happens every year in Detroit. This year, of course, it was virtual, but we all got together and we sang, and it was just something very powerful about singing. We sang something from Beethoven, Mount of Olives. We sang the O'Regan Triptych, which is one of my favorite pieces of all time. But then
O'Regan.
Oh, I love O'Regan so much. I met him because of Houston Chamber Choir. It's like dream come true. And then we sang an original piece by Joel Thompson. So we sang, representing the old, the classic. We sang new composers, and then we sang, composers of color. And I think that's the magical thing about EXIGENCE, is that it takes people of color and proves that we can sing anything. It's not, our voices aren't just like one thing. And I think what was beautiful about EXIGENCE is like, we can sing a spiritual, but we can sing, a classical piece of music. And of course, Eugene Rogers is just a beautiful human being, and supportive and kind. And the Sphinx organization was wonderful. They were very open to having a choral group and a string organization. And they approach everything with such precision and care, and the way that they treat their string players, the way they treat the professional group, the virtuosi, it's amazing. And I was just like, this is a really special organization, and I feel so privileged to be a part of that. And sometimes us EXIGENCE will go and sing, and it'll be a smaller group, it won't be the whole group. And like recently we did virtual recordings, and it got to be everybody because we were virtual. And
Right.
it's just such a big honor to sing with such amazing singers who care about the state of the choral world and the music world, and representing what people of color and singers of color can do.
How many were in the choir, EXIGENCE?
I would say around maybe 36.
Okay.
And then I think when we're the small, they pick out the small group, it's probably like about 25.
Mm-hmm. And in talking to the other members of the choir, what were their experiences of being a person of color teaching high school or teaching middle school and teaching an area that, the white European dead males, that, that there isn't an automatic association there? What did you learn?
It was what was very interesting is that 4 of the singers from EXIGENCE are from Houston. So we got to ride the first initial concert, the inaugural concert, we got to go together. So I got to talk to them as well as everybody else in the group. I think one of the things we all had in common was being in groups and being the only person of color, and being in, or one of the only people of color. As a teacher or a student, having only teachers that were white. And that a lot of us had similar experiences growing up. I mean, my school that I went to growing up was very diverse in the sense that we had everything. We had, white, Black, Hispanic, Asian, which I loved so much. But now that school is completely just one thing. And it's hard, I think, for kids when they don't have that diversity, is they don't know other people's cultures, which I think is super important. And that is something we kind of all had in common, is that we would we'd be invited to sing in a professional group, or we would go sing at a church choir, and we would be the only one. And so people would make assumptions like, oh, where are you from? And it's like, well, I'm from Texas. It's like, oh, I thought you were from Mexico because you're brown. And, it's the uncomfortable conversations, that we all kind of shared those moments. And that kind of unified us in our purpose of, bringing to light that, we're all educated musicians. And, just because, the color of our skin doesn't mean that we're not interested in classical music.
Right.
That assumption that people of color aren't interested in it is just silly. Especially for the string players, because the string players have to play, they have to play a Bach, they have to play this, they have to play that. And it's just, I love Bach. And so it's like, we kind of have all experienced that to different levels, some people worse than others. And so it was very eye-opening to hear people's stories, and to see their experiences, because some of them were not great experiences. They were sad stories. But at least we had each other, and we could make this choir that, builds each other up.
I think that's one of the things about the Houston Chamber Choir as well, is that there is a diversity of singers within the choir.
Yes, definitely. And it's a really beautiful thing, I think. And not just diversity in race, but in age, and in, even differences of opinion. Like, all of us come from very different backgrounds, and we get along just fine. And I think that's really important, because there's just a lot of disagreements in today's day and age, and people can get really venomous about it. And we don't have those issues. And, sometimes we know we're not going to agree with each other. And that's okay. And I
Yeah.
really, really appreciate having a group of people that are very different from each other, because we learn from each other.
And as we were talking about earlier, there is a wonderful sense of community among members of any choir, really. I think that that sense of community, that choral joy, if you like, is something that's very special, and that I know a lot of singers live for.
Definitely, I would agree. Like that, the moment when a concert's over and you whether you thrived in it or survived in it, that moment is just really special. I mean, I'm just thinking like to that concert where we found out we won the Grammy. Some of us were on that recording and some of us were not. And the first thing that somebody said to me was like, "No, it's for all of us. We're a family. This is something for all of us." And I just remember thinking that was really special and really kind. And they're just so many beautiful, kind people and that make up the Houston Chamber Choir.
Well, look, Rebecca, it's been fascinating to talk to you, lovely to talk to you. And I wish you and your students all good wishes as you continue to grow them in the choral experience and the choral tradition. And I look forward to seeing you perform with the Houston Chamber Choir for many years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you to everybody who supports the Houston Chamber Choir as a sponsor, as a patron, as an audience member. We really appreciate it. I'm Singer Flynn. This is Behind the Music. Join us again next time.
The Houston Chamber Choirs with One Accord is your one-stop shop for choral joy. If you enjoyed this podcast, help us to continue our mission to grow the esteem and appreciation of choral music by sharing, reviewing, and subscribing to our content. As a 501c3 nonprofit, support from listeners like you allows us to continue making new and exciting programming. For more information about us and how you can support our work, please visit HoustonChamberChoir.org/give.